She came to Seoul chasing her career, but never expected her heart to be the final reward. When her contract ended, she thought it was over, until Park Minho showed up at her door with roses, and a question that would change everything. If you love emotional romance stories like this, don't forget to subscribe for more. Now let's dive in. The jet lag clung to Elizabeth's shoulders like a stubborn scarf as she stepped into the glossy lobby of Oram, Seoul. She inhaled deeply, adjusting the strap of her structured leather tote. The pristine marble floors, minimalist white walls, and curated luxury screamed money and control, just like the reports had said. Oram was bleeding, though no one outside the boardroom dared admit it. The Lux Seoul campaign, which was supposed to introduce a bold new line of high-end fashion accessories, had flopped hard. The numbers were clear: low engagement, poor market response, and whispers of irrelevance. That's why Elizabeth was here. She wasn't flown in from London for her charm. She was flown in to fix a mess. A sharp click of heels echoed behind her as a sleek young assistant in all black approached. "Miss Elizabeth Owusu?" Elizabeth nodded, her dark curls bouncing slightly with the movement. "This way, please. The board is waiting." The elevator ride was silent, save for the mechanical hum. The assistant kept her eyes forward, clearly instructed not to make small talk. Elizabeth didn't mind. Her mind was already racing ahead to the meeting. She'd heard about CEO Park Minho. Young, brilliant, terrifying. Built Oram Seoul from the ground up and was known for being precise, unbending, and allergic to creative chaos. He had refused outside help for years. But now the board had overruled him and summoned her. As the elevator doors opened to the top floor, Elizabeth took in the panoramic view of Seoul's skyline before walking into the boardroom. The temperature dropped the moment she stepped in. Men and women in sleek suits sat like statues around the long glass table. And at the head, flanked by two senior VPs, sat Minho. He didn't stand. His jaw was sharp, his suit darker than night, and his eyes, emotionless slits, flicked to her like she was a delay in his schedule. "Miss Owusu," he said curtly, not offering his hand. "Let's not waste time." Elizabeth's lips twitched, happy to get straight to it. She walked to the front of the room and connected her tablet to the screen. "As you know," she began, "the Lux Seoul campaign launched 6 weeks ago. The branding was clean, sophisticated, marketed as modern Korean elegance. And yet," she continued, swiping through data charts, "the engagement rates are abysmal. Social media traction, barely a ripple. Customer conversion? Below projected by 41%. Someone at the table shifted uncomfortably. Elizabeth turned slowly, looking each executive in the eye before finally landing on Minho. "It's beautiful, but it's boring." A breath caught. One woman blinked rapidly. Minho's expression didn't change. "You're entitled to your opinion," he said smoothly. "But the campaign reflects our brand values. Minimalism, sophistication, discipline." "Yes," Elizabeth replied, "but it lacks soul. You've created a glass house with no furniture. It's clean, but it's not alive. Where's the story? Where's the emotional connection?" Minho's voice was quiet, but icy. "We're a luxury brand, not a streetwear pop-up. And yet luxury today is about connection," she shot back. "Customers aren't just buying a product. They're buying what it makes them feel. Your campaign doesn't make anyone feel anything except intimidated." Minho's knuckles whitened slightly against the table. "I appreciate your passion," he said dryly, "but recklessness isn't innovation. We're not here to throw paint at the walls." Elizabeth tilted her head unfazed. "And you're not a robot factory, Mr. Park, yet somehow your brand sounds like one." He stared at her. A full 5 seconds passed in silence. Then he stood. "That will be all for now." The room broke like glass. Chairs scraped. Papers shuffled. No one looked directly at her. Elizabeth gathered her tablet slowly. As she reached the door, a voice stopped her. "Miss Owusu." She turned. Minho was still by the head of the table. "This is my company," he said, voice low but clipped. "Don't mistake tolerance for acceptance." She raised an eyebrow. "I don't need your acceptance, Mr. Park. Just results." And without waiting for a reply, she walked out. The door of the apartment clicked open, and Elizabeth stepped inside, wheeling her modest black suitcase behind her. She closed it softly and turned around to face the place the company had arranged for her. A sleek, minimalistic 2-bedroom space with white walls, floor-to-ceiling windows, and furniture that whispered quiet luxury. The cityscape glittered beyond the glass, but her mind wasn't on the view. She dropped her bag near the door, kicked off her heels, and took a deep breath. "Home for now," she muttered to herself, rolling her shoulders as if trying to shake off Minho's sharp words from earlier. "Don't mistake tolerance for acceptance." The words echoed louder in her mind than the soft hum of traffic below. Her jaw clenched. She grabbed her tablet from her tote and settled by the dining table. No unpacking, no shower, just a tall glass of water and work. By 4 p.m., she was pulling images she had taken of the streets of Seoul, graffiti tucked behind alleyways in Hongdae, skateboarding teens near Honggang, and couples draped in bold thrift fashion. She scribbled taglines in both English and Korean, her mind alive with the pulse of youth culture. Real Seoul, not the curated one they kept trying to repackage. By 8:30 p.m., she had also skipped dinner. By midnight, her voice-activated assistant blinked on as she murmured, "Save new file. Project Urban Pulse." She then exhaled deeply and finally leaned back, arms over her head. The next morning at Oram, the meeting room buzzed with quiet anticipation. Elizabeth stood at the head of the long table, mock-ups displayed on the screen behind her. Most of the younger staff sat up straighter than usual. A few even had their phones discreetly tucked beneath the table, trying to refresh their feed. "I wanted something raw," Elizabeth began. "Seoul is a canvas. It's layered, gritty, bold, chaotic in a beautiful way. That's what this campaign is about." A series of images flashed. A girl with blue braids laughing on a subway bench, boys in patchwork denim dancing under neon signs, graffiti scrawled across a storm drain that read, "We are not trends." Murmurs. A couple of approving nods. Even a low whistle from an intern at the back. Miho, seated at the other end, crossed his arms. "And what exactly is the product here, Elizabeth?" he asked, tone cool. "Because I see art. I don't see brand identity." Elizabeth's lips curved into a tight smile. "The product is relevance," she replied, calm. "It's visibility. This is what the market wants, not what we've been spoon-feeding them." Young-hoon, the head of strategy, leaned forward. "She has a point." The demo shifted. "We've been coasting off the same minimal luxe narrative for years." Miho turned to him, voice rising just a touch. "And that narrative is why Oram is where it is. You don't fix what's not broken." Elizabeth clicked to the next slide. "This was posted less than 12 hours ago," she said. A screenshot of her campaign reel on social media filled the screen, complete with reactions, shares, and comment threads filled with words like "finally," "fresh," and "about time." "It's already trending," she added. "Gen Z is having the conversation. We're just late to it." A murmur rippled through the room. One of the junior designers, a girl with soft lavender hair, raised a hand. "Honestly, this is the first campaign I've seen here that doesn't feel like it was made for someone's mom." Laughter filled up the room while Miho's nostrils flared. "This isn't Oram," he snapped. "It's street fashion wrapped in a rebellious attitude. That's not our DNA." Elizabeth didn't blink as she spoke back. "Then maybe your definition of Oram needs an update. Brands have to evolve or they fade. And let's be honest, most of our recent numbers? Flat." The room went still. Miho pushed back his chair as he stood up, jaw set tight. "You think you understand this company because you walked around Seoul for an afternoon?" "I think I understand people," she said gently. "And that's who we're trying to reach. Not your ego." Gasps echoed softly. Even Young-hoon looked stunned. Miho moved forward slowly. "If this is the direction we're taking, then I suggest we redefine our standards entirely," he said, voice low, nearly trembling. "Because this is not who we are." Elizabeth tilted her head. "No, it's who we could be." After uttering the words, silence filled up the room. The meeting was over. People began packing their things in awkward silence. Miho had left first, storming out with a hard clap of his folder. Young-hoon lingered. "You're good," he said to Elizabeth as she unplugged her laptop. "Thanks," she said, trying to keep her hands from shaking. "Just be careful," he added. Miho's not used to losing control of the room. She gave him a tired smile. "Neither am I." That night, Seoul glowed outside Miho's office windows. Everyone else had gone home. He sat in the dark, illuminated only by the blue hue of his monitor. The campaign reel played again, Elizabeth's voice narrating softly in the background over clips of Seoul's restless streets. His hand hovered over the mouse, but he didn't pause it. Just let it loop. He leaned back slowly, frowning. "Why does she always get under my skin?" He didn't have an answer. It had been 4 days since Elizabeth started working at Oram Seoul, and the days passed with a strange blend of routine and tension. Miho had avoided her eyes during meetings, looked past her in hallways, and barely acknowledged her presence, as though her words during the presentation had unsettled something in him that he wasn't ready to confront. "No, it's who we could be." She had said it with conviction. He hadn't forgotten. On Friday evening, as Elizabeth walked into her apartment after a long day, a crisp white memo slipped under her door caught her attention. She picked it up and read it aloud to herself. "Mandatory weekend retreat for all marketing staff. Departure, Saturday morning. Duration 2 days. She stared at it for a moment, then grinned. A break from city chaos? I'll take it. The villa was perched in the mountains, surrounded by woods that whispered in the wind. The team arrived late Saturday morning, chattering as they unloaded bags and explored the large, cozy estate. Elizabeth stayed close to Sora and a few others, helping to set up games in the main lounge, passing mugs of hot chocolate around, and laughing as someone attempted and failed to toast a marshmallow without setting it on fire. Miho stayed on the outskirts, as usual, only speaking when necessary. Elizabeth didn't try to approach him. She had decided that if he wanted space, she would give it to him. That was until the blackout. It happened just after 11. Most of the team had gone to bed, and Elizabeth had wandered into the hallway in search of her phone charger. Without warning, the lights flickered once, twice, then darkness swallowed everything. She paused, disoriented, before seeing a soft glow down the hall. A candle. Miho. They stared at each other in the faint light, unsure of who should speak first. Looks like we're trapped, Elizabeth finally said, folding her arms as she leaned against the wall. Miho chuckled faintly. You always say the obvious, don't you? It's a gift. She smiled, watching the way the candlelight played over his features, less rigid, less polished, more human. There was a long silence, not uncomfortable, just filled with the quiet hum of nature outside and the soft crackle of the candle. I haven't been able to forget what you said, he said suddenly, voice low. During the presentation, Elizabeth tilted her head. Which part? No. It's who we could be. He looked away, then back at her. I don't think anyone's ever said something like that to me. She blinked. It was just honesty. No, he said, shaking his head slightly. It was courage. I grew up with a father who only saw value in results. Grades, medals, perfect speech, perfect posture, perfection always. And after he died, my mother, she tried to change me, but not in a freeing way. In a different mold, one still made of expectations. Elizabeth's arms slowly fell to her sides. That sounds lonely. It was, Miho admitted. Still is sometimes. She nodded, her voice gentle. Well, for what it's worth, you seem more human now than I thought. He laughed under his breath. Don't tell anyone. It'll ruin my reputation. She grinned. Where did you learn to smirk like that? Is it part of your cold CEO training? He rolled his eyes. No. But now I have to ask, where did you learn to be so bold, so confident? Elizabeth considered. Growing up in Ghana, I was often underestimated. Being a girl who spoke her mind wasn't always welcome. But my grandmother used to say, if your voice shakes the room, let it. That's how you know it's working. Miho looked at her, and for the first time, he wasn't trying to read her. He was just listening. The lights suddenly flickered back to life, washing the hallway in sterile brightness. Miho blinked. Guess the moment's over. Elizabeth shrugged. We'll always have candlelight. He looked like he wanted to say something else, but instead, he gave a small nod. Good night, Elizabeth. And goodbye. For now. Good night, Miho. But the next morning, he was back to his usual self, distant, unreadable. He didn't sit with the others at breakfast. When Elizabeth finally found him by the coffee machine, she stepped in front of him, blocking his way. Really, she said. You're going to pretend last night didn't happen? I'm not pretending, Minho replied, not meeting her eyes. You're ignoring me. I'm protecting myself, he said flatly. Elizabeth narrowed her eyes. From what? Friendship? Minho moved to walk past her, but then he stopped. His back to her, he spoke without turning. You are changing something in me, and that terrifies me, Elizabeth. That's the problem. And then he walked away. She stood there, stunned for a moment, then set her jaw. Later that afternoon, when most of the team were packing up, she walked to his door and knocked. No response. She tried again. Still silence. Okay, fine, she said, her voice loud enough for him to hear. I know you're in there. I'm not here to force you into anything. I just want to say this. She took a breath. What you went through, that childhood, that pressure, it's in the past. It shaped you, yes, but it doesn't have to own you. You said I'm changing something in you. That's not a bad thing. She chuckled softly. Also, what is so terrifying about me, Mr. Park? Don't you think we click a lot? She heard a faint chuckle from inside, and her smile widened. Think about what I've told you, she said more softly. If you're scared to walk a new path, I'm here. I'll guide you. That's all. She turned and walked away. That same afternoon, the team boarded the company bus for the ride back to Seoul. Minho sat at the back, his arms crossed, gazed distant as the vehicle rolled through pine-lined roads. In front of him, Elizabeth sat beside Sora, laughing at something the other woman said. Her laughter was easy, warm, untouched by fear. He watched her, her profile soft in the fading sunlight, and the words she'd said earlier echoed in his mind. "You're scared to walk a new path. I'm here. I'll guide you." For a moment, he closed his eyes, then opened them again. Slowly, a decision settled in his chest, quiet but resolute. She was right. It was time to embrace the change. After the retreat, something shifted. It wasn't loud or sudden. It crept in quietly like the changing seasons, a soft tilt in the wind, a gentler light in the room. And Elizabeth noticed. Miho had changed. He wasn't exactly warm, not in the way most people defined it, but he had softened around the edges. He no longer barked orders across the design floor or avoided her gaze when she pitched ideas. Instead, he'd nod thoughtfully, sometimes offering an unexpected good thinking before walking away. One late night, after working with her team to finalize mood boards, a tray of warm teas arrived. Chrysanthemum and honey, the exact kind she always ordered when tired. Her assistant blinked in confusion. "You ordered these?" "No," Elizabeth said slowly, but she already knew who had bought them, and then she sipped hers while smiling. He had also smiled during a briefing where she'd been half-joking about a coat line named after Seoul subway stations. Vita Kim had laughed, and when Elizabeth turned back to the screen, she caught it, the slight, amused tug at the corner of Miho's mouth. It vanished quickly, but it had happened. Elizabeth tried not to read into it. But she did. Of course she did. And she was glad Miho was finding the real him. But one morning she walked into a senior executive meeting only to feel like the floor had been yanked from under her. The room was full of directors, team leads, and even the head of global partnerships. Everyone turned when she entered, but no one said a word. On the screen was a pitch she knew like the lines on her palm. The Urban Vogue campaign. Her campaign. But it wasn't her version. This was stripped, diluted, and whitewashed. Park Dasik, a longtime executive and notorious traditionalist, stood confidently in front of the screen, pointing to a graph that emphasized market-safe colors and proven silhouettes. Elizabeth didn't move. Her jaw clenched as she scanned the room. Her assistant Mira sat near the back, looking just as stunned as she felt. When Dasik wrapped up and asked if there were any questions, a beat of silence followed, until Miho stood up. "I have one," he said calmly. The room tensed. Dasik turned, still smiling. "Yes, President Miho?" Miho walked slowly to the front of the room, his gaze sharp. "This strategy looks familiar. I used past campaigns as references. With some tweaks, of course," Dasik answered smugly. "Past campaigns?" Miho tilted his head. "Funny, because what I see is Elizabeth's proposal from 3 weeks ago. Except it's been gutted and reassembled to look safer." Murmurs spread, and Elizabeth's team members just smiled when they heard this. Dasik's smile faltered as he said, "With all due respect, Elizabeth's version was ambitious." "That's exactly why I approved it," Miho said, voice growing firmer. "Because Oram cannot afford to keep spinning the same wheel. Her vision is the future of this company. And I've finally realized that change isn't something to fear." Silence stretched long and tight across the table. Elizabeth blinked. She hadn't expected it. Not that. Not from him. Miho looked at her briefly before turning back to the room. "From now on, credit is not optional. We move forward with her full proposal, not this watered-down version." And with that he walked out of the room. A month later, the numbers told their own story. The Urban Vogue line planned by Elizabeth launched with anticipation and sold out within hours. Accessories followed, flying off shelves. Videos of people unboxing Oram packages flooded social media. Influencers styled her vision into trends. For the first time in years, the brand was breathing again. Elizabeth watched as shipments left the storerooms of the headquarters, tagged for Dubai, New York, London. Their brand had gone global, and it was all because Miho had taken a chance on her ideas. And as for him, he had changed too. Not just quietly this time, but visibly. His suits remained sharp, his words measured, but he smiled now. Really smiled. Sometimes even in meetings. He started joining brainstorms, not as a dictator, but as someone genuinely interested. He asked questions, listened, and even thanked people for their work. Then one afternoon, his mother saw him on TV during a live broadcast for a fashion expo in Tokyo. She sat in her living room, hands folded in her lap as the camera focused on Miho standing beside Elizabeth. He spoke about vision and youth and growth. He smiled easily, warmly. He even cracked a joke. His mother's hand moved to her chest as tears filled her eyes. "He's shining," she whispered to no one. "He's shining again, just like when he was a kid." And for the first time in years, she truly meant it. That night, the rooftop of the company was quiet as usual, the city buzzing softly below. Elizabeth leaned against the railing, hair tousled by the breeze, sipping water from a glass tumbler. She didn't hear the door until it clicked shut again behind him. "You always come up here when you think too much?" Miho asked, walking toward her slowly. She shrugged. "Only when I need to breathe." He stood beside her, close but not too close. "Congratulations, by the way. The Tokyo team can't stop singing your praises." She glanced at him. "You mean our praises?" Miho smiled. "Maybe, but you're the reason Oram is back on the map." "I should thank you." "You just did." He paused. "No, I mean for more than just the brand. For reminding me who I used to be. For making me face the things I avoided." Elizabeth looked away, unsure of what to do with the vulnerability in his voice. "You mean like emotions? Or public speaking without scowling?" He laughed softly. "Both." She grinned, eyes still on the skyline. "You're becoming fully human, Miho." "Not half." He turned to her slowly. "You always push back, even when it's easier not to." "I don't know how to stay quiet," she said, voice quieter now. "Not when it matters." There was a moment, a stretch of silence filled with everything unspoken. Miho reached out, brushing her hair away from her face. His touch lingered against her cheek. Then slowly, he leaned in and kissed her. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't unsure. It was slow, intentional. When he pulled away, he didn't step back. His forehead rested lightly against hers. "So, do you truly accept this man into your life and see me in your future?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Elizabeth opened her mouth to answer, and then his phone buzzed. Miho glanced down, eyebrows rising. "It's my mother," he answered. "Miho," came the voice on the other end, warm and firm. "Bring Elizabeth home. I'd like to meet her." He blinked. Elizabeth's eyes widened slightly. "Really?" he asked, stunned. "She helped you find your smile again. I want to meet the woman who reminded my son how to live and how I had also held you back." Miho looked at Elizabeth, something tender and hopeful in his gaze. "She wants to meet you," he said softly. Elizabeth, caught between surprise and a laugh, just said, "So, should I bring a gift?" He smiled. "Just bring yourself." And for once, it didn't feel like falling. It felt like landing. Miho's mother was nothing like Elizabeth had imagined that night. She had expected cold elegance or quiet judgment, the kind that watched from behind porcelain teacups and tilted heads. Instead, she was warmth wrapped in silk, with laughter soft as petals falling and eyes that twinkled with genuine curiosity. "I've heard a lot about you," Mrs. Seo said, passing Elizabeth a tray of sliced fruits. "Not from my son, of course. That man wouldn't even tell me if he got married. But the news, the internet, you're quite something." Elizabeth smiled, settling into the plush sofa. "He talks about me less than I expected, too." Miho, lounging on the armrest of a single-seater nearby, grumbled. "You two ganging up on me already?" "Always," both women said in unison, bursting into laughter. The evening unfolded with surprising ease. Mrs. Seo asked about Elizabeth's family in Ghana and what her dreams were beyond contracts and campaigns. She teased Miho about how he used to cry during Disney movies. "Mother," Miho muttered, face in his palm. "I'm just saying," she winked at Elizabeth. "If you ever watch The Lion King with him, bring tissues." It was the first time Elizabeth had seen Miho so completely himself, relaxed, open, unguarded. For a fleeting moment, she let herself believe that this strange, beautiful life she had stumbled into might actually last. But the universe had other plans. The next morning, as Elizabeth stepped into the lobby of Oram, Seoul, a wall of flashing cameras and shouting reporters greeted her. "Miss Owusu, any comment on the leaked report? Did you falsify the numbers to boost your campaign's success? Are you stepping down?" Her body froze. Her reflection in the glass doors showed confusion and panic. "What leaked report?" Security rushed her inside. In the boardroom, chaos waited. Executives were already gathered. On the screen behind them, her name glowed in red, next to words like fraud, deception, and data tampering. Mira turned pale. "They're saying you manipulated the numbers, that the international traction you claimed wasn't real." Elizabeth's heart sank. "What?" "I've already checked," Miho said, voice steady but tight, eyes locked on her. "None of it's true. Someone framed you. And the press is loving it." And just like that, everything she'd built was under fire. The PR team tried to delay the emergency press conference, but Miho pushed through. In front of the press, cameras flashing, microphones aimed, he stood tall behind the podium. "I wasn't going to speak," he began, voice calm but commanding. "But when someone attacks the integrity of the person who saved this company, I have no choice." The room went still. "The woman you're accusing didn't falsify numbers. She exceeded every projection. She didn't trick the system, she redefined it. She's the future of this company." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. And if anyone has a problem with that, they'll have to come through me. The statement exploded online. Within hours, the truth emerged. The real culprit, Park Dasik, the same executive who had once tried to derail Elizabeth's campaign. He had leaked manipulated files to discredit her, hoping to reclaim power. But digital traces tied every move back to him. He was arrested and dismissed from the board. As for Elizabeth, she returned to work to the sound of applause echoing through the halls. 6 months later, Oram Seoul was unrecognizable, global branches flourishing, her vision implemented across all departments. But her contract had ended, and for the first time in years, she didn't know what came next. She sat cross-legged on her apartment floor in sweatpants, eating mango slices from a glass bowl. Jaiwoo had sent her memes. Haein was planning a girls' trip to Busan. But the silence from the one person she couldn't stop thinking about was deafening. Until a knock broke it. She opened the door and there he was. Miho, in a sleek black coat, hair tousled by the wind, holding a bouquet of deep red roses so full they covered half his face. "I hope I'm not too late," he said, lowering the flowers. Elizabeth blinked. "Miho, listen," he stepped inside, voice almost trembling. "I know you said you weren't sure what came next. I know we've both been trying to figure this out. But I realized something. I don't want a future without you. Not in this company. Not in this city. Not in my life." Then, without ceremony, he knelt. Elizabeth's hand flew to her mouth. "I should have said it earlier. I love you, Elizabeth Owusu. So here's my offer, stay. Stay as my partner at Oram. Stay as my partner in life. I don't have a long speech, just this question." He looked up, eyes shining. "Will you marry me?" Elizabeth didn't say anything. She didn't need to. She giggled, that light, airy sound that made his chest ache with affection, then leaned down and kissed him. Slow. Intentional. "Sure. This is my answer," she whispered against his lips. And somewhere between mango slices on the floor and roses in her hands, Elizabeth realized that sometimes the best kind of fire is the one that changes everything, including the heart.